Imagine this. You wake up one morning, and something feels wrong. The world is quiet, strangely still. You look outside, and the sky is dark. There is no sunrise, no warm light on the horizon. The sun is gone. This is not an eclipse. This is not a storm. This is the moment the sun has died. For 4.5 billion years, the sun has been the life source of Earth. It gives us light, warmth, weather, food, and energy. Without it, nothing on Earth can survive. But what would really happen if the sun suddenly vanished? How long would life last? How quickly would the world freeze? Would humanity have any hope at all? In this documentary, we will journey through the final moments of sunlight, the coming cold, the collapse of nature, and the last efforts of human survival. We will explore the science behind gravity, heat, light, and the fragile balance that keeps our planet alive. This is not just a story about the end. It is about understanding how precious our world truly is. This is the day the Earth went dark. If the sun suddenly died or disappeared, Earth would not know it immediately. Light takes about 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth. This means that for 8 minutes after the sun dies, Earth would still look completely normal. Birds would sing. Waves would shimmer. People would drink coffee at sunrise without knowing it was the last one. Then, exactly 8 minutes later, everything changes. Light stops. Shadows freeze. The sky turns black, even during the middle of the day. Stars become visible. The moon fades into darkness because it no longer has sunlight to reflect. But there is something else. For 8 minutes, Earth would continue moving normally around the place where the sun used to be. After those 8 minutes, the sun's gravity would vanish too. Without the sun's gravity, Earth would no longer orbit. It would move in a straight line through space at about 30 kilometers per second into the darkness of the universe. At this moment, humanity would realize the truth. The sun is gone, and it is never coming back. In the first day without the sun, Earth would still hold on to its warmth. The sky would be dark, but the surface temperature would only begin to fall slowly. Average global temperature, normally about 15 degrees Celsius, would drop to about 0 degrees Celsius within 24 hours. It would feel like a sudden winter across the entire planet. Cities would light up their streets and buildings. Governments would make announcements. News stations would tell people to stay calm. But fear would grow as people realized this is not temporary. This is forever. Solar power would stop immediately. Satellites powered by solar panels would lose energy and slowly shut down. Plants would stop photosynthesis instantly. They would still be alive for now, but they could no longer make food. Animals would become confused. Birds would stop migrating. Nocturnal creatures would wander at odd hours. Humans would look up at the empty sky and understand that life has changed in a way it never has before. But this is only the beginning. The real danger is the cold that is still to come. After 1 week without the sun, the temperature on Earth would drop to about minus 18 degrees Celsius. Oceans would begin to form sheets of ice on their surfaces. Most plants would start to die. Trees and grass without sunlight for photosynthesis would begin to shut down their life systems. After 1 month, the average surface temperature of Earth would fall below minus 30 degrees Celsius. Lakes and rivers would freeze completely. Only the deepest oceans would stay liquid beneath thick ice, because water is slow to lose heat. Life near deep-sea hydrothermal vents would continue, powered by energy from Earth's interior instead of the sun. Humans would rush for survival. Cities near the equator would stay warmer longer. People in colder regions would migrate south. Governments would declare global emergencies. Power plants would burn through coal, oil, and gas at rapid speed to keep towns warm. Electric grids powered by solar energy would fail. Wind and hydropower might work for a while, but frozen rivers and storms would make them unstable. Inside homes, windows would frost from the inside, pipes would burst, cars would freeze, animals would search for shelter, food supplies would start to run out, Farming would collapse completely without sunlight. People would light fires, gather in underground shelters, or move into geothermal regions where heat from Earth's core still rises. Humanity would begin to learn what it means to live on a dying planet. After 1 full year without the sun, Earth would become almost unrecognizable. The once blue and green planet would now be white and silent, covered in thick layers of ice. The global temperature would continue to drop and settle around -70 degrees Celsius. Oceans would no longer appear as vast blue waters. Their surfaces would be frozen solid, covered in ice that could stretch for dozens of meters. Beneath this frozen shell, only the deepest layers of water would remain liquid, warmed slightly by geothermal heat from Earth's interior. The atmosphere would begin to collapse. Without sunlight, the air would cool to such extremes that even gases like nitrogen and oxygen would start to condense and fall to the ground as crystals. The sky would grow thin, dark, and silent. Snow would fall not only as frozen water but also as frozen air. Life on the surface would nearly disappear. Trees would stand motionless under the ice. Animals would no longer roam the forests, and no birds would fill the skies. Almost every plant and animal species dependent on sunlight would be extinct. Only a few forms of life could endure such a world, hidden in extreme environments where heat still rises from beneath the ground. Human civilization would no longer cover continents. It would shrink into isolated pockets of survival. People would gather in places where Earth's internal heat still provides warmth, such as volcanic regions, hot spring valleys, or deep beneath the ground in artificial shelters. Some would live near geothermal power stations, using heat from the planet's core to generate electricity and grow food under artificial lights. Others might live in underground bunkers powered by nuclear energy, shielded from the frozen surface above. A small number of scientists and explorers could find refuge under the ocean, near hydrothermal vents where superheated water provides energy and nutrients to deep-sea organisms. These would be the only places on Earth where life continues without any need for sunlight, just as it did billions of years ago when life first began on the planet. Above the ice-covered world, Earth would drift silently through space. No sunrise, no sunset, only stars in a permanent night sky. The planet would no longer orbit the sun. It would wander like a lost world, powered only by the fading heat deep within its core. This is what Earth would become after 1 year without its star, a frozen, silent, and fragile planet, waiting in the dark. If the sun disappeared, survival would no longer depend on countries, borders, or economies. It would depend on energy, heat, and time. Humanity would be forced to move underground or beneath ice-covered oceans, searching for any remaining warmth deep within the Earth. The first and most reliable source of power would be nuclear energy. Underground cities would be built around nuclear reactors that could run for decades. These shelters would need thick walls to hold in heat, air recycling systems to remove carbon dioxide, and artificial lighting to replace daylight. Greenhouses powered by nuclear or geothermal energy would grow crops like potatoes, wheat, and algae under bright LED lights. These plants would provide oxygen, food, and hope. Geothermal energy would be the second lifeline. Earth still holds enormous heat beneath its frozen surface. Deep under Iceland, Yellowstone in the United States, and volcanic regions of Japan and Italy, the crust is thinner and heat rises closer to the surface. Here, humans could drill into the ground to access natural steam and hot water, using it for warmth, power, and even to grow food in underground farms. Oceanic hydrothermal vents would become the third sanctuary for life. In total darkness, at the bottom of the sea, life thrives around black smokers. These underwater vents release boiling water rich in minerals, feeding colonies of bacteria, tube worms, and strange fish that have never seen sunlight. Humans might build underwater research stations near these vents, using their heat and natural chemistry to survive in a world without a sun. However, survival would not be easy. Every resource would be scarce. Food would grow slowly. Water must be melted from ice. Air must be recycled carefully because the atmosphere above would freeze and thin over time. Communication across the surface of Earth would become difficult because satellites would stop working. Without solar energy, batteries and equipment would die. Only underground cables could keep survivors connected. Over generations, life would change. Children born underground would never see the sun or sky. Their world would be lit only by artificial lights. They would be taught that above them lies a frozen land of silence. To them, sunlight would be a story of the past, like a legend from another world. But even with technology, there would be one final limit to survival. Earth's heat would slowly escape into space. In thousands of years, even the planet's core would grow too cold to sustain life. If humanity wished to survive beyond that point, it would need to do something even more extraordinary. It would need to leave Earth. The death of the sun would not only freeze the world, it would force humanity to become a spacefaring species, not by choice, but by necessity. The Earth would no longer be our home. It would be our memory. If the sun died, the window for escape would be painfully short. Earth's surface would freeze within weeks, oceans would turn solid within months, and the atmosphere would begin to collapse. To survive long-term, humanity would need to launch into space while rockets and fuels still functioned in intense cold. The first step would involve converting existing space agencies and private companies, like NASA, SpaceX, and ESA, from exploration programs into full survival missions. Spaceports would operate around the clock, launching cargo and people into orbit. But Earth could not send everyone. Only a small number of scientists, engineers, doctors, and essential workers would be chosen. The rest of humanity would remain underground, hoping for a miracle or waiting for the end. In orbit, space stations like the International Space Station would be expanded into giant lifeboats. New modules would be attached to store food, water, and oxygen for decades. Artificial gravity would be needed to keep humans healthy. Without it, bones weaken, muscles shrink, and the heart struggles to pump blood. From orbit, the next destination would be the moon. The moon has no atmosphere and no weather, making it stable in darkness. Beneath its dusty surface lies water ice hidden in polar craters. That ice could be turned into drinking water, oxygen for breathing, and hydrogen for rocket fuel. Lunar lava tubes, large natural tunnels beneath the surface, could shield bases from freezing temperatures and radiation. The moon would become a stepping stone, not a new home. It would be a shipyard where spacecraft are built and launched away from Earth's heavy gravity. From there, humans would prepare for the most dangerous journey in history, leaving the dying solar system to find a new star. Humanity would need a destination. Astronomers have already identified thousands of exoplanets orbiting other stars, some in the habitable zone where temperatures allow liquid water. Among them are promising worlds like Proxima b around Proxima Centauri, and planets in the TRAPPIST system, where multiple Earth-sized worlds circle a small, dim star. But even the closest star system, Alpha Centauri, is over 4 light-years away. With today's fastest spacecraft, it would take more than 70,000 years to arrive. We would need a new kind of propulsion. Nuclear fusion engines could generate continuous thrust by fusing hydrogen atoms. A light sail pushed by lasers from Earth could accelerate a ship to a fraction of light speed. Antimatter engines, though still theoretical, could convert matter directly into energy, providing incredible power. Even with these technologies, a journey to another star could take decades or centuries. This means humans would live and die aboard enormous ships. These ships would not be like rockets. They would be entire moving worlds, with farms, lakes, forests under artificial sunlight, schools, hospitals, and graveyards. Children would be born during the journey, never seeing Earth or the stars as we know them, only the metal walls and glowing ceilings of their traveling home. Some scientists suggest another idea. Instead of sending people, send frozen embryos or digital human minds stored on computers, guided by artificial intelligence. Upon reaching a new world, robots could build shelters, grow food, and then awaken new humans. This would reduce the need to keep fragile bodies alive during the long journey. Wherever humanity goes, there is one truth. The sun may die, but life does not have to end with it. Our survival would depend on courage, science, unity, and the belief that the future is worth saving. As the sun vanishes and Earth falls into darkness, the surface would become uninhabitable. But life might continue deep below. Governments and scientific organizations would begin building underground cities powered by nuclear reactors and geothermal energy. These facilities would be carved beneath mountains, deserts, and polar regions, where the thick crust protects against deadly cold and radiation from space. Inside these shelters, artificial lighting would replace sunlight. LED panels would simulate daylight cycles to keep human sleep rhythms intact. Food would come from vertical farms, where crops such as wheat, potatoes, and leafy vegetables grow under controlled light, temperature, and humidity. Algae tanks would recycle carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. Water would come from underground reservoirs or melted ice, and would be constantly purified, reused, and monitored. Animals like chickens, fish, and insects might be raised as protein sources. Honeybees and butterflies would be stored in genetic vaults or cryogenic labs, because they are essential for pollination if Earth is ever warmed again. Seeds from every major crop on Earth would be stored in secure vaults, similar to the global seed vault in Svalbard, Norway, which already exists as a backup for global agriculture. These underground civilizations would have schools, hospitals, laboratories, and communication centers. But they would face psychological challenges. Without sunlight, many people would suffer from depression, anxiety, and loss of hope. Artificial forests with holographic skies and recorded bird songs might be created to remind people of life before the darkness. Children born underground would grow up never knowing sunlight, rainbows, or oceans. They would only hear stories of a warm Earth that once existed. Over generations, humanity might evolve to adapt to this new world. Skin might become paler due to the absence of sunlight. Eyes could become more sensitive to light. Society itself would change. Life would revolve around survival, maintenance, and memory. Scientists and leaders would work constantly to find a way to reignite the sun or migrate to a new star. Humanity would become a species that lives in shadows, but dreams of stars. The Earth grows colder. The oceans begin to freeze from the surface down. Forests turn to ghostly statues of ice. Cities fall silent beneath snow and darkness. Yet beneath the frozen ground, in shelters built by hope, humanity survives. People gather around artificial light, telling stories of the sun that once rose every morning. Stories of blue skies, green fields, and the warmth of summer. To children born in darkness, these stories sound like legends. But for those who remember, they are memories of a home that no longer exists. Even with no sun in the sky, humanity keeps looking upward. Powerful telescopes are launched into space to search for new stars, new worlds, and new beginnings. Scientists design engines that could push giant ships toward distant suns. Others dream of reigniting the core of our planet or building an artificial star. Whether any of these dreams succeed does not matter as much as the fact that we continue to dream. The death of the sun would not only be the end of a world, it would be the greatest test of who we are. A test of our strength. A test of our unity. A test of our ability to find light even when the universe gives us darkness. As long as humans remember the sun, as long as we pass down its warmth in our stories and our science, it is never truly gone. One day, somewhere in the universe, a new sunrise may come, not given by nature, but created by human hands. If you enjoyed this journey into the universe and want to explore more mysteries of space, time, and life, subscribe for the next chapter. Stay curious, stay inspired, and remember, even in the darkest night, the human spirit searches for the light.